All right, diving right in. Today we're taking a look at the very foundation, the bedrock of how we chat in English.
Yeah, the absolute basics. And we've got some cool stuff to work with here.
Definitely. We're going deep into these transcripts from a podcast called, I think it was A1 English Listening Practice.
Yep. First 5 episodes.
It's meant for folks just starting out with English, so the conversations are super simple. But I think there's a lot we can unpack here for our listeners, the folks who are already pretty comfortable with English. This is a chance to really appreciate how these basic interactions work. What are those essential words and phrases, and how do they fit together? And maybe even pick up a few tips for how to help someone who's learning.
Totally. Like sometimes it's good to go back to the beginning. Remind yourself of how the pieces all fit together.
Exactly. Okay, so the first episode, they jump right into introductions. You've got this very classic exchange, Hello, my name is Sachin. What is your name?
Right. And then the reply is, Hi, my name is Muskan. Nice to meet you, Sachin. So basic, but so important.
It really is. And then it goes, nice to meet you too, Muskan. How are you today?
I am good, thank you. And you?
I am fine, thank you. I mean, it doesn't get much more straightforward than that, right?
Nope, that's the core of it right there. Just a few sentences and you've already exchanged names, said hello, and asked how each other's doing.
It's amazing how much is packed into those few lines, though, when you think about it.
For sure. Like, first you've got the greetings, hello and hi. Then, bam, straight to introducing yourself. My name is, and then boom, asking the other person right back, what is your name?
It's almost like a formula, isn't it? But it works. It's so direct and clear.
And it makes sure both people are involved right away. Like, right from the start, it's a two-way conversation.
Right. Then comes that classic phrase, nice to meet you. It's like automatic in English, isn't it?
It's like ingrained in our brains. You meet someone new, you say, nice to meet you.
And it's always reciprocated, nice to meet you too. Like, it would be weird if you didn't say it back, right?
Totally. Just, it's expected, it's polite, and it kind of sets this positive tone for the interaction. Like, we're both happy to be meeting each other.
Exactly. And then they smoothly transition to asking about how the other person is feeling. How are you today? Which, I mean, that's like a cornerstone of small talk in English. You hear that all the time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. How are you? How are you doing? How's it going? Like, there are variations, but it's always there.
Always. And the answers are just as standard. I am good, thank you. I'm fine, thank you. Short, simple, to the point.
Polite, too. Always good to throw that thank you in there.
For sure. Now, the podcast itself actually points out a few key vocabulary words from this exchange, like introduce, which is just that act of telling someone your name when you meet them.
Right. And then nice to meet you, which, well, we've talked about that one. It's that specific phrase you use when you're meeting someone new.
And then how are you? Which, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory.
But it's good to emphasize those, For someone just learning English, those are big ones.
Totally. They're like the building blocks, right? You gotta get those down before you can move on to anything more complex.
Exactly. It's like learning your ABCs before you can write a story.
Perfect analogy. Okay, so let's move on to episode 2, which gets into daily routines. So, Sachin asks Muskan, what do you do every morning?
Muskan replies, I wake up at 7 a.m., I brush my teeth, take a shower, and eat breakfast.
Simple stuff, right? But it shows how you can start talking about your life, about your day, even with just basic English.
It's like that next step after introductions, you're sharing a bit more about yourself. And what I think is interesting here is how Muskan lays out her morning routine, like chronologically. It's a clear sequence of events.
Right. And that question, what do you do every morning? That's your go-to phrase if you want to find out about someone's regular habits.
Totally. And notice how Muskin uses all present tense verbs. Wake up, brush, take, eat. That's how you talk about things you do regularly, habitually.
Yeah, good point. Sachin then asks, what do you eat for breakfast? Getting a bit more specific.
And Muskin says, I eat bread and eggs. Sometimes I drink tea. So again, very basic foods, but good vocabulary to know.
And I like how she says, sometimes. It adds a touch of realism, right? Like, not every day is exactly the same.
Exactly. It shows there's room for variation, even in a simple routine.
Sachin then says, that sounds nice, which, I mean, that's just a little conversational bridge, right? Just showing that he's listening and being friendly.
Yeah, keeping the conversation flowing.
Then Sachin asks, after breakfast, what do you do? So again, keeping that focus on the order of events in the day.
And Muskin says, I go to work at 9 a.m. Then she does something really smart. She turns it back to Sachin. She asks, what about you?
Oh, that's crucial. That's how you keep a conversation going. You gotta show interest in the other person, too.
It can't just be one person talking the whole time. You want that back and forth.
Right. So Sachin tells Muskan what he does. He says, I study English in the morning, then I help my mother in the kitchen. And again, we see these everyday activities, simple but essential vocabulary.
And the podcast highlights a few words here. Wake up, breakfast, and work. Like, these are words you're going to use all the time when talking about your day.
Totally. And once you understand these basic words, you can start talking about your own experiences and understanding others when they talk about theirs.
It's a big step toward having real conversations.
All right, moving on. Episode 3 takes us to a restaurant, and the scene starts with the waiter saying, hello, welcome to our restaurant. What would you like to eat?
Classic restaurant greeting. You hear that everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's like a script.
And that phrase, what would you like to eat? That's the polite way to ask for someone's order. It's what you're going to hear.
Definitely. And Sachin responds, hello, I would like a sandwich, please.
So, again, he greets back. And he uses, I would like, which is a polite way to make a request. And, of course, the please is important.
Always got to be polite.
Then the waiter asks, sure, and what would you like to drink? So, using a similar structure to ask about drinks.
And Muskin says, I would like orange juice, please. Again, polite and clear.
And that repetition, it really reinforces the pattern for ordering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would like, plus the food or drink, plus please.
Right. The waiter confirms, okay, 1 sandwich and 1 orange juice. Anything else? That's how they check if you want more.
And Sachin replies, no, that's all. Thank you. So a polite way to say you're done ordering.
Easy peasy. And the podcast points out some key words here. Order, which is, well, the act of asking for food in a restaurant.
Sandwich, which, I mean, everyone knows what a sandwich is. Bread and stuff in the middle.
And juice, which is usually a drink made from fruit, like orange juice, apple juice.
Again, very practical words. If you're ever in a restaurant in an English-speaking country, knowing those words will be super helpful.
All right, on to episode 4, where we dive into hobbies. Muskin starts things off. She says, let's talk about hobbies. What do you like to do, Sachin?
Good way to transition to a more personal topic.
Yeah, it's a nice way to learn more about someone. And that question, what do you like to do? That's how you ask about hobbies in English.
Simple and direct.
Sachin answers, I like to play cricket and watch movies. Gives a couple of examples.
Pretty common hobbies. And then, just like before, he asks Muskin back, what about you? Keeps the conversation balanced.
Muskin says, I like to read books and listen to music. Also very common hobbies. Lots of people like those.
But then Sachin asks a follow-up question. That's great. What kind of books do you like? So he's digging a little deeper, showing more interest.
Oh, that's a good point. It's not just about listing hobbies. You can also ask for more details.
Exactly. It shows you're really listening and that you want to learn more.
And Muskin gives some specifics. She says, I like storybooks and English learning books. So now we know a bit more about her reading tastes.
And the podcast highlights the words hobby, which is anything you do for fun in your free time.
Read, which is, well, looking at and understanding words.
And music, which is, music, sounds, songs, that kind of thing.
Right, and being able to talk about your hobbies, that's a great way to connect with people, Find things you have in common.
For sure. It's a good way to build relationships.
Okay, last episode. Episode 5 tackles asking for directions.
Super practical skill. Gotta know how to do that.
Oh yeah, especially if you're traveling somewhere new.
For sure. So the scene starts with Totten saying, "Excuse me, where is the bank?"
And that, excuse me, that's important. Gotta be polite when you're asking for help.
It's like you're interrupting someone, so you want to be courteous.
And that question, where is, that's the basic way to ask for directions.
Yep. And Muskin answers, the bank is on Main Street, next to the supermarket. So she's using those prepositions on and next to describe the location.
Important for understanding where things are in relation to other landmarks.
Definitely. And then Sachin asks for more specific instructions. He says, thank you. How do I get there?
That's a natural follow-up, right? Once you know the general location, you want to know how to actually get there.
Right. And Muskin gives him step-by-step directions. She says, go straight, then turn left. The bank is on the right side.
Clear and simple. And she's using those key directional phrases. Go straight, turn left, on the right side.
Essential for navigating. And Sachin finishes with, thank you very much. Again, being polite.
Politeness is key in these kinds of interactions. So the podcast highlights a few words. Directions, which are just instructions for how to get somewhere.
Next to, meaning beside something else.
And go straight, which is to walk in the same direction without turning.
If you can master those phrases, you'll be able to get around pretty much anywhere.
That's a good feeling. All right, so we've gone through all 5 episodes. It's amazing how much we can learn even from these super basic conversations.
I know, right? It's like, it reminds you of how much is involved in even the simplest exchanges.
Totally. So what are the big takeaways here for our listeners?
Well, I think the main thing is these conversations show us the absolute foundation of English communication. Like how to greet people, introduce yourself, talk about your day, order food, discuss hobbies, and ask for directions. All those essential things you do every day.
And we've seen some of those crucial vocabulary words like introduce, breakfast, order, hobby, directions. Those are words you're going to see and use all the time.
And what's interesting is, even in these simple conversations, you see the importance of politeness. Like using please, saying thank you, and using phrases like nice to meet you.
Right, and keeping the conversation balanced, asking questions back to the other person. It's not just about the words themselves, it's about how you use them.
Absolutely. It's about that social flow, that give and take.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Like, how many other everyday situations rely on these same basic structures and words?
Exactly. Like, think about meeting someone through a mutual friend, or asking for help finding something in a store. You're going to use a lot of the same phrases and vocabulary we've talked about today.
It's all connected.
This deep dive, it's really just the beginning. It's about getting those foundations down so you can build from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the basics. And for all of you listening, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep having those conversations. That's how you really learn.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. Until next time.
See you then.